Welcome back to the workshop. Good morning. If you're new here, my name is Chris and I run a small 3D printing business in my basement. Today, I have a complete disaster to clean up from a crazy week of work, but the main topic that I wanted to discuss was about a review that I got on one of my Etsy shops. And it says, I'm usually pretty skeptical about anything 3D printed because the quality, look, and feel can vary drastically. I was pleasantly surprised how well these were made. And I think that speaks to a larger sentiment around the 3D printing community because let's be honest, most of the stuff that is 3D printed is not very well made. And I don't know if that's intentional or not, but today let's walk through some of the things that you can do to make sure that the products that you're putting out are actually high quality, something you'd be proud to share and aren't just gonna end up in a landfill. Let's get going. So as I start cleaning my desk, let's talk about the first thing that you can do to make sure that you're putting your products in the right position. And that is making sure that you're picking the right category to actually design products for. One great example here is storage solutions. Now, when people buy different storage solutions, you expect some type of durability. And 3D printing is a unique manufacturing method that actually cannot compete very well in this specific space. So with these pegboard bins, which I designed myself, and if you're interested in the STL files, you can actually pick them up on my Patreon or on my website. But I will never sell these as a physical product. And the reason why is because if I pull one of these off, you can actually see the back of the bins have these little pegs, which work great if you're putting them up here, but they can break. If you're a little bit too rough with the bins, they will break the pegs. But once they're in, work perfectly fine. They can actually hold quite a lot of weight, more weight than you would ever be able to fit inside one of the bins. That is not a problem that something from a big box store or a more traditional manufacturer would have issues with because it would be probably made out of metal or something like that. So this is one area where you probably will never be able to compete. Another example with storage are these types of bins. Forget about it. You can't make it cheaper. You just can't 3D print something cheaper than this for storage. So this is a good example of maybe a category that's not very good for 3D printing. Now, the one exception to that is getting creative and being able to store specific things on your wall like this. Now, you're designing something that is specific to a tool that helps you with storage that no other manufacturer is going to make for one of two reasons. One, they're just not going to move enough product because this is too specific of an item. Or number two, 3D printing actually excels in this type of printing and manufacturing, and you can do some unique things that other manufacturing like injection molding just can't do very well on their side. So you can usually carve out spaces within these categories, but for the most part, stick with some categories that you do think and do know that 3D printing is going to be meeting customers' expectations and be able to compete with other people using different methods. Now I know I'm already going to get a lot of comments be like, ooh, what are the categories that do sell well? And while I'm not here to list all of those off for you, and I actually don't know all of them, if you are selling some stuff online and don't mind sharing, pop it in the comments below. I'd love to see what everyone thinks are some of those best case scenarios for 3D printing and products. Next is the 3D modeling side of things. This is where most of the work of your product actually should be done to make sure that you're designing in a way that exploits all of the strengths of 3D printing while also mitigating all of the weaknesses. Now, I don't know if you watch Smarter Every Day, but Destin, when he put out his video on manufacturing a product in America with his grill scrubber, it was interesting because he had the 3D modeled product. He thought it was really good. Then he brought that model to a injection molding shop, and the guy who does injection molding 3D modeling basically said we have to remodel this entire thing because it's not going to work with injection molding. And now they made it work, clearly. But I think that goes to show you that each discipline is very unique and 3D printing is no different. A few things that you can do to help mitigate and really lean on the strengths of 3D printing are, number one, when you're building and designing a product, make sure that the bottom edge of that product, if I can get this to focus, is chamfered. So what that means is add a 45-degree, I'll put a picture up here, little lip on the edge so that way it's not straight up and down. The first layer that's going to go down on the bed is actually going to have a little bit of squeeze out, and it's going to be called elephant's foot. And it makes a pretty unappealing and sharp edge on corners that are in contact with the bed surface. That's the first thing you can do. That's going to mitigate post-processing of the product on that front and also make it a little bit more premium for yourself. The other thing is to avoid supports. Now I know some models just absolutely require supports, but I would argue that if you design something that needs supports, use it as a last case or last resort. The first thing I would actually do is go back to the drawing board and try to redesign the product where it does not need supports. This is a good example of that, whereas I have these feet on the bottom, and you could maybe design these in a way that maybe it prints on its side and it prints them all in one. But at the end of the day, that just doesn't look as good, and I want this stark contrast of like a little bonsai plant or something. So what I've done is I've printed these in different pieces, and then I just use an M3x5 screw to just hold it in place. And I don't need threaded inserts or anything because number one, you're just not going to rip that off. Number two, those screws are never going to come out, as in you shouldn't be removing them. And number three, they're just there to help sliding of the part. They're never going to be in tension when they're being pulled apart, because you're physically going to be setting this on a table. So that's one way that I can get around making a multi-part piece and do a little bit of assembly at the end. And adding extra hardware to your products, while it does take a little bit of time, also allows you to command a higher price and kind of gets away from making things feel cheap, makes them feel a lot more premium. The last thing to know with supports is when designing, if you look at things from a side view, supports are really going to become necessary at anything under 45 degrees. Now you can typically get away with what they call a threshold angle, I believe, of 30 degrees on the 3D printer, where your printer can print at an angle of 30 degrees off of flat and still have relatively good consistency without many errors. But what I would say is that is risking it. I would really make that 40 to 45 degrees just to save yourself the hassle. If you go with 45 degrees, your printer can absolutely handle that, and you will have a lot less errors when printing, which help reduce failed prints and keep your manufacturing costs down. So those are a couple tricks of the trade. There's a lot more. Maybe if you're interested, let me know in the comments. If you're curious, or if you 3D print and sell stuff online, love to hear what your little tricks that you use to make sure that your products turn out good are in the comments below. The third tip for today is actually printer maintenance. It may seem simple, and you would think some of these machines, you can just get them and they just run. And for the most part, that's true. It's really dependent on brand. Now, in my personal experience, I've really only used Bamboo printers and one Creality printer when I first started out, and these have been great machines. Now, I have started actually taking on some stuff and will be getting some new printers in the shop here soon from companies looking to get some feedback. So if you're interested, I've had a lot of people in the community ask about my opinions on other brands, and I don't have any firsthand experience. So I'm working on getting that. I'll have some videos coming out in the future where I'll be reviewing different printers and seeing how they stack up and would they even be suitable within my print farm. So if you're interested, make sure to like and subscribe to stick around for that. But printer maintenance is really important. And I think for me, the biggest things and takeaways are the following. Number one is to make sure that your filament is calibrated. And number two, to make sure that the bed is level. If you have calibrated filament and you get good bed adhesion on that first layer, a lot of your prints are going to just turn out well. Now, obviously, you still have to make sure it's clean. You have to re-lubricate the screws in some of the areas as the printers, and each one again is different, but as they tell you to do that. And then make sure to stay up to date on any of the updates for the most part, because those do help iron out some issues. Let's quick talk about the types of calibration for the Bamboo machines. Now, in Bamboo Slicer, it's pretty easy because all you have to do is go up here and click on calibration, and then you basically get a full window where you can do not only flow rate, but you can also do flow dynamics. Once you run this calibration through the machine and then check its results, it literally gives you instructions. It will save the profile of the calibration directly onto the machine for which you did the calibration, and you'll be set. So for instance, I use all Bamboo matte filament. For each of my machines, I went through and did calibration tests for the filament, the Bamboo matte stuff, and now it's saved on there. The profile is saved on there. I don't have to mess with it, and man, the prints turn out so good. On top of that, you can always just go through and do a standard re-bed leveling calibration. And in the worst case scenario, you might have to check out tramming. And now tramming is actually how level the bed is, or parallel to the actual tool head. That's what tram is, because technically level is like level with the earth, right? So tram is slightly different, being parallel with each other. It's more of a fancy engineering term, I guess, for somebody who's not an engineer. But nonetheless, pretty simple. There's not a lot of work to do the calibration, but it will really make your stuff look and print way more consistent. Well, that's it for me today, guys. I just want to jump on here and give you a few tips. If you're interested, make sure to get in the discussion down in the comments below. Love to hear your thoughts on different parts or other things that you do to make sure that you're kind of getting out of that stigma around 3D printing and that people think it's kind of crappy stuff. So I'd love to hear what you say. Thanks again for sticking around. Appreciate everybody's support. Thank you to my Patreon members. And if you really like this content, feel free to like and subscribe. There's lots more to come. I'll be doing a day in the life video coming up here as you know, next weekend's a holiday weekend, so a little bit different with planning. But I am crazy busy on my end. I have at least one order in every shop that I have up with product. So that is really cool. And I am fast trying to clean up my space because I bought every single spool of filament in the matte color from Bamboo, and I don't know where I'm gonna store 25 open spools of filament that I don't use all the time. So it's gonna be a little crazy in here, but crazy is the name of the game. Thank you, everybody. I will see you next time. I'm off to drink the rest of my coffee and continue getting some prints on the printers. See you next time.